Big Rig Kids, y'all. Are you ready? Let's go. Here come the Big Rig Kids. Roll with the Big Rig Kids. Let's Sapphire the truck, take you to such amazing places with the Big Rig Kids. Those helpful Big Rig Kids. See how they give and grow and get to know amazing things. Learn with the Big Rig Kids, and you'll see how it is to have adventure days and hang and play with all your friends. Because the Big Rig Kids know what it is to live a most exciting and inviting life is positive.
Thank you for tuning in. We had a little technical difficulty earlier, but we are back. And we are glad to say we have a very exciting guest tonight with us. And it's just going to be a remarkable show tonight. I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be a remarkable show. But before we get into all of that, I want to thank each of you for chiming in and tuning with us tonight, because without you, there will be no us. And without further ado, let's give it up to the one and only, the grandma that makes the best cupcakes and lemonade for the kiddos, Miss Grandma Polly. Y'all give it up for her.
Hello, good evening. Welcome, everyone. We apologize again for the delay. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about education. And before we go into that, I want to congratulate all of our 2022 graduates, whether it was high school, college, middle school, whatever, you made the accomplishment. So I'm not going to stay there long. I'm going to introduce you to a young man that I had the privilege of speaking with. And we're going to call him Mr. Education. He not only does he has education, this young man speaks with wisdom. And before we go any farther, we're going to bring in the voice of Mr. Education and allow him to tell you guys a little bit about himself. Mr.
All right.
Education.
So good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to introduce myself as Mr. Educator. First, before I introduce myself, I want to, thank you all for having me on this platform and allowing me the opportunity to speak to you all's audience and guests. As Ms. Brown stated, my name is Mr. Educator. A little bit about myself. I do have two college degrees. My undergraduate studies was in music education with a concentration in trumpet playing from Prairie View A&M University. And I just recently finished my master's degree in Masters of Music and Jazz Studies from the University of Arkansas, Monticello. Just a little small background about myself. I've been teaching in education since about 2017. I'm originally from the bluegrass state of Kentucky, and I have been thoroughly enjoying, my career path within education as far as teaching music is concerned and working in the inner city schools since 2017.
All
Let's give
right.
Mr. Educator a big hand. Thank you and welcome. And I'm going to dive right in. We're going to start with the family going to education because I believe in the village. And when I speak of the village, I speak of parents, community, churches, family, the extended family, and everyone else. So if I was to ask you that question of how important is the role of family being involved in our children's education, does that outweigh the
Personally,
responsibility? Go ahead.
oh, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're
No, keep
fine.
going.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I would say that family and the village mentality is very much essential when it comes to the role of education. Just speaking from my background, I literally had a village of people surrounding me from since I can remember all the way through undergrad, through graduate school up until now. Just a little bit about my background as far as my family is concerned. My parents were a little bit older of age. My parents were of the baby boomer generation, so family was very important. Within our our tribe and our network, and outside of our our intimate family, I had several mentors and educators that put their love and their care around me I was blessed to be in an academic organization that was primarily for African American males. So, that also contributed to my success within education. Not one man or two people can do it by themselves. It truly takes a network. It truly takes, multiple positive influences on that particular scholar, just to, so they can have different avenues and different outlooks as they, traverse through the educational realm.
You said so much. And when I hear you say that baby boomer, I'm a baby boomer.
Yeah,
And
yes, ma'am.
I think the way it is happening, there is an age gap there.
Yes, ma'am.
There
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 is
is a
very much
big
age.
age gap. Yes, go ahead and comment
Yes,
on that for me, please.
yes, ma'am. Just to speak on that. So, speaking in detail as far as baby boomer, as far as my parents, so you can kind of see the timeline. My dad was born in 1949, so my dad grew up in the heart of segregation in the South, and my mother was born in 1957, so she kind of grew up at the end of segregation. Going into that affirmative action era. So I had different aspects being taught into me as far as knowledge, wisdom, experience, you name it. Just to go even further, my grandfather, which unfortunately I wasn't able to meet, but just played such a pivotal role in my mother's life. My grandfather was one generation literally after slavery, so his mother was a slave, and then my grandfather later came shortly afterwards, and then of course my parents, my mother, and the rest of her siblings. So just looking at that timeline, you can kind of see as a rough guesstimate how my upbringing was, and then looking at how parenting as far as the age range is in today's time. A great deal of the kids I teach, their parents' age range from about. I'm currently 29 years of age, so they range from about 29 to mid to late early 30s. Some of them, some of their parents may have had them uh, at that teen pregnancy era time between the ages of 16 and up. So it kind of just depends. And that's just kind of been the exposure level of parents that I've been exposed to since I've been teaching, that range from, kind of really, they started really young, or they're in that age bracket of my age and a little bit older. Not, I don't deal with too many parents that are, you know, early to mid 40s and beyond, unless they're, a grandparent raising their grandkid. And, I'm currently dealing with them in that fashion.
Got you.
Mm-hmm. I get that. And that is prevalent. Even though it was prevalent back then, during the time of your mom and dad, there were still a lot of young people being raised by grandparents. But because the time was different back there compared to the times that we're dealing with today, is it difficult at times for you to work with students who have young parents?
I would say that it has its ups and its downs. It depends on what level of mentality that particular parent is at. And again, that can range. It ranges from, is that particular parent a stickler, about their child's education? Like, are they what we call in the education world a helicopter parent, meaning that, they're so invested that, they're asking me detailed questions about my lesson plans. They're asking me detailed questions about, what they're learning in class. Some parents take it a step further. I know my parents, they would sometimes sit in my classes with me because they want to see, what I'm learning, how the teacher's engaging with me, how I'm engaging with the lesson. I have other parents that are kind of just laissez faire. They're kind of just hands off. They just want to know that their kids in trouble, but they're, you know, doing what they're supposed to, for lack of better words. And then you kind of have other parents that are, unfortunately more vested in other things like athletics, and they're not so much vested in, the arts or other aspects of academics.
Yeah, I get that. And this is where we're going next. Kenny, you had asked a question that you wanted to ask. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and we didn't get to it. When it comes down to the education, is there a reason? And if I'm paraphrasing this, Kenny, so if I don't get it right, you could jump in here and say it.
Okay.
But you wanted to know, was there a reason why some kids learn different from others? It was
Yeah.
something to that effect.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's what it is. But why aren't they? The question was more upon the teachers, though. If teachers aren't equipped to handle different uh, learning styles, are they really considered a teacher, or are they just teaching one ideology?
I think that varies on the educator. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Did I cut you off?
No, no, you were right.
No, sorry, just say okay, okay. I think that varies on the educator. You know, you, I'm just going to try to sum it up. You have some teachers that strictly are by the book. They're teaching just curriculum based or what the state mandates for them, and then you have what my one of my principals once told me. There's a difference between a teacher and a school teacher. A teacher is just going to teach you the face value of the information they're covering, versus a school teacher is a school wide teacher. It doesn't matter if they teach you music or history, they're investing in you not only the curriculum, but they're investing into you life skills, life norms, life culture and things of the sort. So I try to pride myself in making sure that I'm teaching well outside the box and trying to reach each and every individual student, because again, everyone learns differently. I'm more of a visual and kinesthetic learner. I learn more better by watching,
Yeah.
doing it within action. You may have other learners that are more auditory. They can just need to hear you talk about it and explain it, and they're good to go. So I try to make sure that, at least within my practice, that I'm touching on all the different learning styles, so I can make sure I'm reaching at least the masses effectively.
Awesome. That's yeah. I think I know there are a lot of teachers out there that just follow the curriculum and it's nothing else but that, and then they grade the child because they don't have the intuitiveness to see that there's another way to learn something or teach something, so to speak. So hats off to you, Mr. Educator. I really appreciate that.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly because we all have our unique way of learning. There are some things I can read and get it. There's some things I have to see it being done and then I get it. And then there are some things that I can hear and I get it. But when we put these kids all in a classroom and everybody's being taught the same exact way, and you have a kid who just does not grasp it, they can't get it, and we preach this thing, no kid left behind, but in reality these kids get shoved to the side and they keep falling farther and farther behind. How do we handle situations
Yeah.
like this?
I think we have to, you know, a lot of things are database. So I think we have to look at the data to make sure to see where we are falling short. And once we can look at the data and see where we're falling short, making those necessary adjustments. Again, I can't really speak from the core perspective, that being, your things, your math, your English, and things of the sort. But what I can say is that, my mother worked on this, even before I went into education. She always told me education starts at home. So, and she always prided me. She said, when you have your family, when you have your kids, don't just assume or just allow your child to start, fundamental education when they don the door of, a school. You need to start that education process as they're starting to, develop from that, toddler stage of, sentences and things of the sort. My mother never, let me speak in broken sentences, as some people allow their babies to do or their toddlers to do. She always would um contour and mold my sentences so that I could have a more impactful conversation. So by the time I was about 5 or 6 years old, I could have a somewhat of a concrete conversation. I could read to a decent level. So I would say that so we can get ahead in the education realms, we need to start early. You know, early bird gets the worm. It's never too late to start early. So you know, then you know, instead of putting a tablet in front of your kid at the toddler stage, you know, start putting those hooked on phonics. Start putting a book in front of them. Start putting those things in front of them that teach them, you know, the phonetic sounds of how to pronounce a word. Those little small details, so that if you know if there is some type of a learning barrier, whether it's you know I don't want to say learning deficiency, but they're a little bit, you know, slow to learn certain things compared to their other peers. You know, you're starting to nip that in the bud and see those issues ahead of time so you can know the necessary help that they may or may not need as they go into school.
I
Touche.
ooh, you just hit the nail on the head for me. That was deep because we see a lot of this today. The television, the cell phones, the iPads, the computers are now babysitters for a lot of young people. And I strongly believe that education starts at home and it goes over into our system. Because, in my opinion, in many areas of our school system, is not adequate to in helping our children to get to where they need to be alone. It goes back to the parenting, the community, and the schools. If I never read a book, if my child has never read a book until they started pre-K, kindergarten, elementary, whatever the situation may be, then they're already behind the eight ball. So I'm going into the next question. Do you believe we sometimes put too much responsibility on the educators as parents?
Yes, ma'am. As far as within today's time, I do feel like there's an expecting level that you know the educator needs to be not only the educator, but essentially depending on where you are. I'm not going to paint a broad scope.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where you are, you know, being raising, you know, this particular kid, and sometimes I do find myself raising some of my students and teaching them things that you know either my father or my mother or my aunt, uncle, or another mentor taught me during you know their adolescence. Because I teach middle school. Originally, I started out at the elementary school level, and now I'm currently at the middle school level. So some of the things that I teach now, especially you know, our young black males, you know, my father was kind of instilling this into me, you know, at the age of 4 and 5. Granted, you know, my father, I grew up a military brat, so my dad was, you know, Vietnam veteran and an Air Force master sergeant. A lot of these, you know, principles I try to instill in my young black males at my school, you know, my dad was kind of harping this at a very early age. So I do find myself in a lot of regard, you know, raising to an extent a lot of my students as alongside of teaching them the discipline that I cover.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna tip my hat to you because and and like you said, it's not a broad brush, but it just depends on the location and where you are. It's very rare that the young men who look like you, who look like my brother, who has my skin tone, even darker, it's very rare that they see a male figure in the classroom, but they also have that male figure missing from their home. So in a lot of cases, they don't have anything to identify with because it's not at school and it's not at home. And then it just leads to other things. You want to elaborate on that a little bit? Because I have strong feelings about that.
I comes to the family and raising of a kid, and I want to apologize for that. I do very much have the belief system of the nuclear family. Again,
Mm-hmm.
it takes two to tango. So if it takes two to tango, it definitely takes two to raise one. I was telling you know a friend of mine the other day, like, you know, I can't if I you know had a daughter and I was a single parent, I can't
raise essentially my daughter into being a woman. I can only her or educate her on the tendencies of what a positive woman looks like based off of my positive experiences with the opposite sex. But I can raise my son into being a strong black man. And so therefore it's very important that both parents are, fundamentally in the home, because there's just certain things pinging back and forth that, a male is going to be deficient in if he doesn't have a mother in the home, and vice versa. You know, um Not trying to be, sexist in any regard, but men are very much, logistical thinkers. We are very much, processing things. We don't really think a lot, a great deal with emotionality, whereas women can teach that nurturing emotional side to a male, taking perspective in before he makes a decision or encounters or engages with another individual.
Yes.
We need some hands for that,
Yeah.
y'all.
Yeah.
We need some hands and love for that. Because I always say a woman can teach a boy how to grow into an adult, but she cannot teach him how to be a man.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and just like the man can't teach that daughter how to be a woman. And I just love the fact that you brought in the nuclear family, because that was the plan from the beginning. Some way, somehow, we got away from this.
Family, the
Okay,
nucleus.
yeah, from the family thing, and it's like, oh, I'm the strong black woman. I don't need anybody. Black guys, old women are bitter. They're angry. They just that angry woman. And then you get to this point to where you got this war going between two people who are supposed to be able to come together
To
and create what it's supposed to be as a family, but yet we're still battling each other. I don't need that man. I could do what I'm strong. I got my education. The guy over here, well, she's withholding the kids from me, or she did this and she did that. I've gone on, and then the child is caught
in the middle, emotional
sitting right
crossfire.
in the middle with that crossfire, and it just does not stay at home. It spills over into every aspect of society that we're in, regardless of whether it's school, church, community, the streets, whatever. And I really do believe this is part, not all, but part of the reason we're losing so many of our young black men today, because the nuclear has been just like an egg. It has been bust open, and the yolk is just running all over the place.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's one of my biggest thing. And we've talked about education in the family. But now I want to go to my teachers. And of course, y'all had Teachers Week. I want to shout out to everybody out there who's out here with these kids, because the job is not easy. When it comes down to education, I look at education is a must. Education is great. But to have education and not have wisdom, because you can have knowledge, but not have the wisdom with it all working together. When I look at our teachers who are in the school system, I think some of it is just like what we say about the police department. You have some teachers who are there who they give their all, they're in it. It's just their passion. Then on the other hand, I think we have some of them who are there just to be there, or they have got burnt out so bad dealing with some of the classrooms that they're in that they just get to the point that they don't care. I'm going to let you answer that, because I want to come back with something else for teachers in a positive way, but I just wanted to get that out. Let's talk about that for a little bit, please.
Yes, ma'am. So I would definitely say you do have, and that of course that goes for any career professional. But in this particular juncture, you do have, the educators that give their all. They're very passionate about what they do, and go to work with a sense of purpose and mission to for the betterment of affecting these kids because they are our future. And then of course you do have those essentially those other educators that are there to collect the check. And I will say, speaking from observation and point, it's not uncommon or difficult for one to become burned out when you have what seems like a lot of different other pressures, working against you as you try to swim upstream. Again, looking from just some of the experiences I have had in education, it's not uncommon to have, a particular student or several students that you're trying to, you know, essentially affect and change for the better, but you're having either no support to resistance, whether that's from, at home with their parents or family members or whoever's raising them, or with the initial leadership of your school or the system that you are working within. So I can see where teachers do get, feel, defeated or burnt out from that and are, completely calloused, as years go on with dealing with that. And I can also see teachers that are, that are passionate there that kind of, lose their light, but they're still, ongoing to a point of where, they're mentally, starting to push themselves where it can be kind of damaging. So, again, you know, it can fold either way. It can fold from a person just being unmotivated because that's just who
Mm-hmm.
they are, or a person that's, have reached all odds and, does not know how to reset from that level of adversity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh
Perfect
yeah.
sense.
I totally agree. And there are just so many different scenarios because I know there were times when I've walked in the classrooms. I'm not a school teacher, but I have a program where we go in and read with kids. And when I see kindergartners and first graders, and sometimes the older they get, the worse they get, but just the blatant disrespect that some of these teachers have to go through. There was a situation here, just happened a little while ago, where you have a black male teacher. I think he was a coach. Somebody informed them that there were kids on the campus with guns. Him and the security officers went into this classroom. They confronted those kids. The young lady slapped the phone out of his hand and shoved him, so he pinned her against the wall. Nothing happened to her, but he got fired. So I can understand why some of the teachers are leaving the classroom. First, they fired him and he fought. Now he's been back in court. They decided they would withdraw his firing him, and then now they're just going to suspend him. And then when he comes back into the job, he's been at school over 18 to 20 years, and now you're going to pull him out because of some unruly children and send him to another school. And his total argument was he saved lives that day. The kids had a gun on them. They were talking about shooting up a pet rally that afternoon. So I can understand why some of the teachers get out of and they get burnt out. And I'm going because I gotta say this, and then Kenny, I'm gonna let you jump in because I know you itching.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to our teachers, their salaries are so low. Some of these teachers are teaching school and having after school jobs, but they are the educators. They're the ones who's teaching these kids how to go on to college. They're the ones who's teaching these kids how to get scholarships. They're the ones who's teaching these kids to play sports. They're the ones who taught these people who went into entertainment. So entertainment, sports, and all this stuff make the millions. But the people who's actually doing the educating are so far underpaid that it's unreal. Talk to me, y'all.
I'm of the opinion that I think a lot of this is on purpose. They don't want people to become knowledgeable, to apply the wisdom and be fruitful, if you will, and multiply. I think they want a bunch of zombies that they can control. And if they can't control them, they're gonna create more jails, put people in, and thus turn another profit, the new Jim Crow, if you will. And I think it's all an agenda personally, because if school uh, really was about teaching the kids, I think they want to teach what they're. I think a lot of what the curriculum, not the teachers. I'm not saying not the teachers, but I'm talking about the bigger, who's behind the scene and the curriculums that they're pushing. Because really, when you're in junior high school, even elementary school, you should be learning about finances and money and savings and things like that. Things that you're going to be really doing in life. But they're teaching you calculus. I've took calculus like two or 3 years in my high school year. Haven't used it yet.
You
Haven't used it.
old.
But I'm
Do
just
they still
saying.
teach calculus?
The point the point is that the curriculums aren't even about life sustaining. They're just it's a lot of fluff and extra stuff. It's not producing with productive citizens, if you will. It's producing people who aren't using their brains, and that's what they want, so that they can control the masses. I believe anyway, but
Ooh,
that's another story.
I want to hear Mr. Educator feedback on this one, because I know you're coming with something. Come on, talk to
I definitely can agree
us.
with that and contest to that. My old man always told me, your school's going to teach you what they think you should know. I'm going to teach you everything that you should know. So, in hindsight, meaning that, of course, you're going to learn let's say for history, you're going to learn history. You're going to learn more than likely some type of an American history, and you're going to learn your history wherever your state's from. But it's going to be very contour. It's going to be very guidelined on what you learn within the confines of that.
Or
But
European
my
cultural studies.
parents and my family are European culture studies. My and parents always took it a step further, and always taught me about Black history. Always touch on it. I mean, Black History Month. There wasn't such thing as Black History Month. We was learning Black History Day. Again, my dad grew up in the middle of segregation, so my dad was walking history. I grew up with my secondary love to music is history. So again, with my dad being a military vet, we always talked about Black military history. The first infantry unit. The Rough Riders, the 85th
Buffalo
infantry. Being the
soldiers.
all African American infantry within World War II, Buffalo Soldiers. The Harlem Hellfighters. You name it. So I feel like what's messing up a lot of our youth is that they have no sense of who they are. And I remember one of my mentors saying that it's like we're in a moment, like in The Lion King, when Rafiki was trying to show Simba, who you are. Like, don't you know you're the prince? You're supposed to be the king. Our kids don't really know that, that they're supposed to be these kings and queens, and supposed to, carry themselves in that manner. They're so overloaded and overdrive with what they see on TV, what they see on social media, what the industry's, giving them, whether that's athletics and entertainment. And, to a regard, I'm not gonna, downplay entertainment, because I mean they all have its words, for lack of better words, but there's more to entertainment from a historical Black perspective than just current rap music in this time, or current athletics in this current time. And a lot of our kids, their mindset is either, depending on who you talk to, what sex. If it's the male perspective, an overwhelming majority of my kids I talk to either talk about going to the league, or in some efforts or hopes of, doing something musically that's geared around rap music. Up the hallway from my classroom is the ROTC instructor, and he constantly tells them, like, you have a higher chance of being a four-star general commissioned officer in the military than you do making it to the league. But for whatever reason why, that never clicks to them that, you have more of a guarantee of applying yourself, going to college, either getting an ROTC program, or, doing like I was blessed and fortunate to do, obtaining a music scholarship and paying for your tuition. And I try to do in hindsight to them that, with you going trying to play professional ball or trying to play college ball, you're just a number. Meaning that if the NCAA doesn't care that you tear your ACL that first game of the season, they're gonna redshirt you. or some hotshot freshman comes in the next semester, you're going to be benched and your scholarship is going to be cut. So what are you going to do about school then? A lot of y'all want to say y'all want to go to LSU or these big E1 schools. Do you have a payment, plan on how you're going to pay for school outside of athletics? And I think that we have
Man,
to, start having more realistic conversations with our kids about, what life looks like and what's comprised of life as a black person, in America. And there's more to life than just athletics and entertainment.
man, you are speaking so much truth, and this what you just said just now was I had the same conversation a couple of weeks ago. Our children, and I'm gonna bring it in even a little closer. Yes, Black history is very important. There are things that we need to know, but the most important Black history to me, and you started out with that conversation, knowing your roots, knowing who your grandparents were, where they came from, who their grandparents were, where they came from. Once you know that family tree and understand the things that they came through and the things that they grew through and the reason why you're here today, that's some history there. I'm agreeing with you 100%, but we as family, we have a responsibility. When I was growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and it was like everywhere they went, it was like, yeah, that's your uncle over there, yeah, that's your granduncle over there, that's your aunt there, that's your cousin there. And it was like everybody you met, because I grew up in the country, you was kind of related to everybody. But they made sure you knew who your family was. Today, young people don't know. They might could go beyond mom and dad, because some mom and dads, the parents died before the children started having kids. And that's as far as they could go as far as a family tree. But if you don't know who you are, how do you know where you're going? This is very important. And I know we're going to bring you back in here, Mr. Educator, but hold up a second. Kenny, are there any questions out there? Can you see it?
Yeah, there's a lot of comments, a
Okay.
lot of positive things about family, and like he said, the family is the nucleus of the universe. I mean,
It
once the
is.
family was broken down, I mean, it's basically a wrap. It's like people are just squandering in the dark, just you know, can't find anything.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I also say, Kenny, I'm gonna cut you off for a second, but on that one thought that you just said, well, I always hear people saying what the system is doing
but what are we doing
and what people are doing.
to
But
combat
what
that?
are we doing as a people?
To combat that, you know. Let me come in here. I think
I know we got to bring him back in here too, but go ahead.
I think what are we doing? But to get to that place to even ask that question, because the cognizance isn't even, it can't even comprehend that question right now. A lot of situations where what are we doing to combat? Because a lot of people think we're old things, reparations, all kind of things. People are caught up in what they
The
believe they may be
past.
owed. Yeah, the past. They're basically caught up in the past and right now. But when you see other races getting reparations and getting all of this stuff for stuff that didn't really transpire for 400 years to them, it's a slap in the face. But it just shows the
I don't think
resilience.
so.
It,
We can
it,
have
it
that
can
debate,
be.
but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm just saying it can be from the different mindsets that people have. If this is America, this is the land of opportunity for everybody. Why is this one particular race? And that can really bring people down. And I think men. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to women, but just men more so because men are being targeted in a way that they want to use them for free labor. They want to use their in the prisons and things. That's what I'm getting to. You know, they're making millions off of this, and day labor in the prison. I mean, they're making what, $5 a month? I don't know, but it's nothing.
Nah, the highest pay in prison right now is $2 an hour, and that's these big furniture companies where they're manufacturing furniture. I want you to hold that thought because, see, this is really going to go into a debate. But let's bring
Yeah,
Mr. Educator back in here because you said something that made me go. Well, I know. Okay, come
I'm
on,
just saying.
come on, Mr. Educator. What's your thought?
I, I'm 50-50 on it. I had this conversation with my mother a couple of weeks ago, and kind of in regards to the political realm. I won't go super deep into the politics aspect of it, but like I was telling my mother, I was like, we've gone through so much historically in this country. Being brought over here, slavery, Reconstruction era, Jim Crow and everything. And I was telling my mother, I said, y'all gave me the blueprint of how to be successful and how to play the game. And now it's my job to make sure that my people learn how to play the game and not get caught up in getting fouls and technicals in the game. And I think that we, as a race of people, we've been disrupted at fronts to where now that we don't have our bearings to understand or to regroup as to what's going on. And granted, sometimes people should think or feel that as if Black people should be a monolith when we're not. But I was telling my mother, if you look at it compared to like other races, for example, like looking at Hispanics, Hispanics may not be a monolith within a large scale, but what you can arguably say about Hispanics are they are click tight harder than anything you've probably ever seen. They buy from each other. They live, in collective neighborhoods with one another. They everyone has their own infighting, but do they really have the large level of infighting compared to other races? I mean, it could be like 6 to 8 different, people in one household, but they're gonna make sure that everyone gets out of that bucket and reestablishes and pulls everyone up. That goes across the board with the Arabs, with the Asians, and I think with Black people and with African Americans, we should look at the blueprint and play the game, pulling ourselves up with each other. We shouldn't be so hard pressed on, when are we going to get our play from, whoever's coming from, whether that's government or another entity. We need to realize, like, okay, look, governments or whoever's taking forever and a day to give us what we need. Sister Johnson, Brother Brown, they're pretty well off. How many others like them are well off? Okay, can we go and revitalize our neighborhoods? Can we go in a mass front and re-educate our populace, change the narrative, change our mentalities, populate a different way of thinking, kind of cut off this cancerous, toxic notion that we have amongst the youth so that we can have a more thriving, prosperous era to come forward. And I think we have to, foresight what we see for the future because we have so many different from all different sides that we're gonna eventually have to regroup and reprocess and refigure stuff out. It may not be monolithic, but we have to at least come up with an idea of what's going to be for the best preservation of African Americans in this country.
I agree.
Mr. Educator and Mr. Kenny. While I hear y'all, and I agree with a lot that you guys say, and I'm going to sum it up in these words for me on that topic right there that we were just having. We as a people, and it's not, we can't say Black people because those Haitians, they come over here and they make it do what it do, just like the Mexicans do. They pull together. The Africans, they do the same things. It's just us African American people who have become so colonized that we can't pull together even when the truth is sitting right there in your face. Because once it gets started, Kenny's going to see things Kenny way. Renee is going to see things Renee way. Mr. Educator is going to see it his way. And now you have three different opinions sitting at the table We say that we're there for the same purpose, but because it's not going my way, I choose to do it a different way, and y'all not satisfied with my way, or I'm not satisfied with Kenny's way or Mr. Educator's way. Somebody gonna get mad. They
Truth,
don't know what they're doing. I'm not gonna take nothing to do with it because they think they know everything, and we're so busy fighting each other. Nobody has to fight us because we do it to ourselves.
but let
Once
me.
we get rid of that mentality, Kenny, nobody owes me anything.
Okay, I feel you. The point I was making is piggybacking off of you when you were saying three different ideologies at the table. Okay, how do you handle that? So that's the question. People are gonna be people. All you can do is all we can do is it's kind of like we have to do what we believe is the right thing to do, and people will observe and watch to see how it plays out for you, and if they see where it becomes prosperous for you, then they will change their thinking. It's not much talking that anybody can do. You know what I mean? It's talking that anybody can do. You know what I mean? Oh, what was that?
You and I had this conversation. You have to connect
Yeah.
with
Oh, what was that?
like-minded people in order for things to come together and work. It has to be like-minded people. And you said, people will sit back and see what you're going to do and see if it works for you. Then they want, why you want somebody on your boat when you done got halfway out in the water and you halfway there? But then they're gonna come. I'm not talking about like-minded people, but then you're gonna bring them in and they're gonna cause chaos. You have to be careful with that.
You do. But it just goes back to being the man in the mirror. You got to start with
Mm,
yourself and really not if because you're going to attract what you're going to attract. You know what I mean? Like you said, like-minded people are going to attract like-minded people, and it's going to
mm,
manifest itself. But to I don't think that you can really. Well, you can have a plan, but I don't. More so of a purpose, because purposes never change.
right,
Plans change all the
right.
time, and plans can change to get you to that purpose. But never be so caught up on a plan to where you think this is the way it has to happen. It's
There
like
you go.
a mountaintop. All of us, this is the one place we're all trying to get to, but people are taking different routes to get there. And I think as individuals, one of the first things, especially in our community, we have to just acknowledge and respect that of that person, and know that whatever journey they're taking, they're going to find out for themselves. And when it becomes real to them, it starts meshing. You know what I mean? Everything
Mm,
starts meshing once they had this experience behind that journey. So
yes, Mr. Educator, jump on in here. You still there?
yeah, did he drop off? Looks like we lost him.
We lost him,
Yeah,
but okay. Hopefully he comes back.
comes back. Yeah.
But in that sense, and yes, when we say each one teach one,
Mm-hmm.
is everybody capable of learning? That's a question I wanted to ask him for real.
You know what it is? There's this saying by Lao Tzu, right? He said,
Hmm.
um, you know, when you have a leader and people
Hmm.
follow him, that's one thing. And then, yeah, he's coming back in
Oh,
now.
he's back.
Yeah. Uh,
Because I mean,
Sorry that we lost you. Welcome back,
Sorry,
Mr.
my
Educator.
thank you. Sorry
thank
about that.
you. There,
My phone
Mr.
overheated.
Okay.
Educator. My question was, and now I could drag it on a little bit. Is everyone capable of learning? I believe everybody's capable of learning, but I don't believe everybody's capable of learning the same thing as everybody else.
At the
You
same
went to
time.
school to be a teacher. So yeah, at the same time. You went to school to be a teacher. I have no interest in that as far as being a school teacher full time in a classroom in the education system. So
But you're a
I'm
teacher.
not going to, yeah, in my way. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In my way. But then you may find somebody else who's interested, Kenny, you in the videography and all this good stuff. I have no interest in that. I'd rather have someone else do that for me because I have my specialty while working over here. Everybody has their own area that they're bright in. So my question is everybody capable of learning? Mr.
Yes.
Educator.
I feel like any and everyone's capable of learning. You just have to have that receptive mindset. Now, will you be able to um execute or perform, the level of information compared to someone else? That's questionable. I tell my band students all the time that you have, two types of musicians. You have the musician that has raw talent, and that's a very very small percentage, meaning that they've gained that musical skill very quickly. Some things are easily able for them to pick up. And then you have that musician that has to woodshed. He has to work a little harder. He has to put in a little bit more time. He has to fall and get up and fall and get up. If you have the zeal and the tenacity and the steadfastness to continue to stay with it, eventually, any deficiencies or issues that you may have will eventually iron themselves out. But you have to be willing to, see where you're deficient at and how to bring yourself up to speed. And I think that goes for a lot of different things that people learn. I'm not the best math person, but I work with a tutor as far as being more proficient, as far as understanding on a more deeper level. Now, can I sit here and teach someone algebra? I definitely cannot, but I can fundamentally pick around what is the fundamentals of it, and somewhat be able to handle my own ground. So again, that goes back to your mentality on being a learner, because I tell all my students that
Ooh.
um, I'm always a student. Yes, I'm an educator by profession, but I'm always a student. If I ever wake up one day and say I feel like I know it all, I've failed as an educator, because there's always something that's evolving and new coming out. So I don't know everything, and I'm just as much as a scholar as you all are scholars.
Oh, you just brought that whole thing full circle. That's the point that I was making. And the key word I'm going to pull out from it is first recognize that there are areas that we need, and I'm life period. Recognize that there are areas that we need to grow in. The areas where we're short at, let's find those mentors. Let's find someone else who has elevated to a level higher than where my knowledge is in at, where we can all learn from each other. Because as long as we live, we should be learning and we should be growing. So you brought that full circle for me. And I'm going to be quiet. So what you got, Kenny? Because you look like you're thinking.
No, I am in total agreement. I think it, and bringing people together, we just have to respect the process that they have in place, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, because it doesn't mean anything until they live it and feel it. They have to experience it, and then they can kind of gauge what serves them and disserves them, and eventually I think it all is going to come to that place. Well, I think people have been divided so long. I'm just speaking of African Americans right now, have been divided in the
Mentality.
sense, yeah, the mentality, two crabs in a bucket syndrome, and it plays. It's a long time, a lot of years, hundreds of years that this has transpired over here, to where people feel threatened in a way. And if you know where they're coming from, you can kind of be more loving to their need to see that this mesh can happen even with them in that mindset. If the people who are already mentally capable of accessing that to where they can bring others in through, go on and say the word, Kenny, through love.
Yes,
Just love
but you can have
and
the
respect.
love, but the person has to have the desire also.
Yeah, I think a lot of I tend to chalk it up to fear, and it could be fear of not knowing the outcome, fear of, I mean, fear plays so much
Okay,
into.
stop for excuse me, is his shield falling? Look,
uh yeah, he's on there still. Can you hear?
yeah, I
I
can
can hear
hear
y'all.
you.
Y'all hear
Okay,
me?
Oh, okay.
he's still there.
But yeah, I hear you, but a lot of things I think that we gripe and quite about, a lot of it has to do with desires.
I think you're right on that. Desire plays a part in every the wanting. I mean, people always wanting something somebody else got. That's, look at America, how it was built. That they say they discovered Christopher Columbus, but haha. But another story, another time. That dude. But it that desire is desire, yes. But if you desire love, if you desire community, and I'm not even going to use the word desire because people sometimes they have a positive connotation and a negative. But I'm going to keep it real and say desire is really kind of a negative thing. The word you want to use is aspire. You know what I mean? What you
Okay,
want to aspire to be, like when you want to desire something, it's an object. When you aspire to be something, you're becoming, bigger than any
okay.
object or thing like that.
I
So
can, I can, I can, I can, I can, I can dig it.
that's my mindset anyway. I think desire, while I understand how people use it, but for me, I kind of use it as something in a negative connotation because people want it, 9 out of 10 times they want something somebody else got. But when they
I
aspire to
can
be
dig it.
something, it's a different driving force. You're not attacking another person for what they have. You're building it within yourself and producing it.
I got you.
So with
So
that
let's
said,
aspire. Any questions? And there's no questions still.
yeah, beautiful
So no
comments.
questions. I want to thank all of y'all for tuning in tonight.
Is that
I
already over?
mean,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
there is big, big, big. I mean, you guys are out there, and I just thank y'all for being here, and y'all really interacted with this tonight. There are no questions. I guess you guys just wanted to hear it out, but Kenny, I told you, Mr.
Educator.
Educator
Yes.
was gonna bring it.
I
I mean,
truly
just
appreciate his mindset, his cognizance, and how he even jars the cognizance of
yes.
myself and others. He gives you definitely things to think about in a way. So thank you so much for taking time out of
Yes,
your evening. I know we're on different time
I know, right?
time schedules, but thank you kindly for taking time out of your day to join us. We truly appreciate that.
Hey, look, I'm
Well,
gonna
I
have
just
to
definitely
call
want to
your
thank you all
buddy.
for.
I'm gonna
Oh
have to
yeah,
call your
I was gonna say I
buddy when
want.
I get off. Oh, is he
He's
talking?
talking, yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's okay.
Tell go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say no. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to say I want to thank you all for allowing me to come onto y'all's platform and further speak on this. It's definitely important, subject matter and conversation that we definitely need to have amongst our people and amongst our youth.
Definitely agreed.
Oh, most definitely, and we're gonna have to bring you back too. I'm gonna have to call your buddy when I get off the phone because that's where I heard your voice at. You was on his platform, and I hit him. I was like, "Who is this dude?" Because the conversation was just so. I love conversations that have meaning that makes you think because it makes you grow.
Yeah,
And Kenny, we got to remind the people we're still selling tickets for our fundraiser, and we got that $100 gift card, and of course this is my beautiful cup. But the cup that you guys will be getting will have all the characters on it, and also you get to choose one of the dolls that's sitting back here. And I want to thank everybody who has purchased tickets so far. The drawing will be June 1st, and you can't win if you're not in it. So I want to thank you guys. for that type of support. And Mr. Educator, oh my God, yes, 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 yes. I hope y'all enjoyed this tonight because he brought it home. Between him and my brother, they made some excellent points along with sweet grandma Polly. But
Oh boy.
I love a good conversation. But this is where we need to get back to, where us women and us men are able to sit down and have casual conversations about the things that's going on in society, and everyone speaking with each other through respect.
Respect and love. Yep.
Yes, nothing but love.
And that's what's gonna
Nothing
be
but
it.
love.
Well,
Hey,
thank you,
Wayne
Mr.
Cooper.
Educator. Wayne Cooper. Michelle,
Yes.
great. It was a lot of wonderful comments on tonight. So we thank you guys for taking time out of your evening to join us and welcoming Mr. Educator with his words of wisdom and his knowledge and kernels of truth
Yes.
for us to absolve and into our
Yes.
DNA.
Yes. Yes. See, we've been bringing all these women in here. We got to get some men in here. Thank you, Daryl. We had more guys join us tonight. Okay, so we got to bring some guys in here. So that's what it takes. Okay, we gonna get some of them. But anywho, Mr. Educator, I'm gonna let you give your final thought.
I would say my final thought is just keep up the fight. Keep pushing, keep enduring. In the words of the late great Nipsey Hussle, life is a marathon. And the marathon continues. Keep going.
Wow, very encouraging, Mr. Kenneth Thompson. I called your whole government name. You
Love,
got final words?
love, peace, and chicken grease.
Oh Lord. Well, once again, thank you guys for joining us. Remember to join Grandma Polly again next Thursday from 7 to 8. And we're going to run it through June 9th. On the 9th, Mr. Osceola Thomas is going to come in and close it out. And we won't be back until that second Thursday in August once we shut it down June 9th. So you guys tune in, keep
you,
supporting us, tell your friends.
you mind if I tell them about the new shows I have coming out?
Why you ask me that? You
I'm
know I
just
don't.
I'm just saying this is that platform. I know we got to get going, but we have two new shows coming out. If you know songwriters or poets, authors, anything like that, you can join us. The Songwriters for Songwriting Loft. My first guest is going to be a member of the infamous group, The Spinners, that will be joining us on June 1st. That will be the first day of the show for that one, and the Poetographer starts the day before that, which more than likely, I already know my sister's going to be the first author on there talking about her wonderful, amazing books. So keep those dates in mind.
I didn't know that part.
Tuesday, May 31st, and Wednesday, June 1st. I'm telling you now.
I didn't know that part, but thank you, my brother. And what's the platform? What's your platform?
It's Words with the Poetographer. That's, with the poetry and the books. And the other one is called the Writing Loft, where, we always think about people who write those beautiful lyrics to the tender melodies that we hum all day. So, thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
but
Educator. I don't mean to drag this out. I know
Thank you all.
you're in another zone, so we got to get going.
But you're doing it
Thank
through
you all.
Facebook, though.
Yeah, it'll be on Facebook. Yep, Facebook
Okay.
pages, Words of Art, and Songwriting Loft. Those are the two pages, but it'll be more promotion coming in the next few weeks.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. So thank you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
We love you,
I
Mr.
thank you guys
Educator.
for checking in. Love
Thank
you
you all.
guys. Peace out.
Hang in there.
Here come the big rig kids, roll with the big rig kids. Let's have fun here to try to you to such amazing places with the big rig kids. Those helpful big rig kids, see how they get and grow and get to know amazing things. Learn with the big rig kids, and you see how it is to have adventure days and hang and play with all your friends. because the big rig kids know what it is to live the most exciting and inviting life is positive. Sapphire with the voice of wisdom keeps the story rolling, and by golly,